Hey y'all, Fish Trabs here, and today let's talk about OTGs. OTG is a mechanic that is found in a lot of fighting games, and that's also a thing in Kinnikuman MGP2, and it's a really important mechanic in this game. So honestly, it's a bit of a surprise that I haven't talked about it sooner than this, but especially with the recent mountain video I did, I think it's probably no better time to talk about OTGs than right now. So with that said, let's kind of jump into it. So I'll start by talking about what an OTG is. So for those of you unaware, OTG stands for off the ground or on the ground based on who you ask, and this basically means hitting an opponent while they are knocked down. So for example, in this game, if you knock someone down, you can do like a move to basically hit them while they are still on the ground. That's called an OTG. You find this like in a lot of different games where they kind of fulfill different functions. In a game like Marvel vs. Capcom, it's just part of your combo. You kind of use it to kind of extend what you're doing. But then there are other games where you kind of just use it like tack on a little damage to the end. Oftentimes like this is scaled very heavily though. OTGs and MGP2 is more of the second category of just something that you can tack on at the end of knockdowns. The big difference with MGP2 compared to a lot of other games that might have an OTG is that there is no scaling when it comes to OTG hits. Here I'm going to do Kinnikuman 8A, and you guys can see that it does 84 damage, and if I OTG with the same 8A, it does still 84 damage. It is completely unsealed. Because of this, OTGs and MGP2, you should think of them less as kind of just like a little extra thing to tack on at the end of a combo, and more so like an actual high damage unskilled combo ender. And I do mean it when I say that OTGs are basically combo enders, because knockdowns in MGB2 all have varying amounts of grounded contact time. This is a period where when you're knocked down, you're basically forced to stay on the ground before you can get back up. So if you can hit someone during this period, that OTG is guaranteed. It is just part of that combo, right? Some knockdowns, of course, are too short to guarantee any OTGs at all, but a lot of knockdowns do guarantee some sort of OTG. So knowing that what OTG you can get from what knockdowns is a big part of just maximizing your damage in this game. For example, Kinnikuman 5T, this guarantees no OTG. 8A, as you can see here, your opponent can't get up fast enough. Likewise, 5T doesn't even guarantee a 2A. However, 6T, while this is still not enough time to guarantee an 8A, this is actually enough time to guarantee, as you can see here, a 2A. And that 2A is completely guaranteed. That will hit as part of the combo as like an additional damage to 60. The whole combo ender thing is even more apparent when you OTG someone after a juggle. Juggles in MGP2 ideally end in a knockdown, whether that's an air throw or an SKD, and especially with the case of an SKD, that causes like a long enough knockdown that you generally are able to OTG them afterwards. This tends to be really tight though, for reasons I'll explain in a minute, but this means that after something like this into like an SKD, you're actually able to OTG them. That OTG was completely guaranteed, that extra 84 damage. And as you can see, that's a pretty big chunk of the damage of a juggle. So not doing an OTG after the juggle leaves a lot of damage on the table. Of course, this also does mean that you're left advantages after the juggle, so there is more than a good reason to just do your juggle and then just use that time to like reposition. But for max damage, you are going for that OTG. In that regard, a lot of juggles in MGP2 actually ends up resembling a lot of juggles from Tekken 7 or Tekken 8, where that is the structure of like doing a launcher into like a string, into what's it called, a tailspin, a screw, a tornado, I'm not sure, into like some kind of ender. The big difference only being in Tekken, that ender is like some other string. In this game, that ender is just some kind of OTG. Where this gets tricky is that, throws aside, how long you're forced to stay on the ground after a knockdown is dependent on the damage of the move that knocks you down. This means that from something like this 2148, that's like this big, meaty, damaging move, Kinnikuman like has a lot of time to actually OTG them. But off of like a much more low damage SKD, something like this, you have like a lot less time, making it like a lot harder to time. And that can make a lot of OTGs after a juggle really difficult, because oftentimes like a Karazo or not exactly Kinnikuman, juggles are a pretty long juggle combo that ends on a pretty scaled finisher, right? That SKDs them. So getting like an OTG is like a big unscaled damage, but timing it can be very difficult to get all that extra damage. It's not mandatory, of course, because you still got a knockdown. You can still use that SKD time to like reposition and build meter, but you can kind of leave a lot of damage on the table by not going for that OTG. This isn't universal, but as a rule of thumb, most characters have a quick low damage OTG in their 2A. This is normally kind of like a low kick or like a low drop kick, maybe like a low ground punch, as well kind of like a slow, more damaging OTG in their 8A, which is typically like a elbow drop, like a body splash, like a knee drop type move, right? In that regard, you can kind of think of this a bit like a quick pursuit or slow pursuit, kind of like in a game like Samurai Showdown or Vampire Savior. Like there's a mechanic very similar to this, right? OTGs can work a lot like that. Emphasis again that this is not universal. There are some characters who maybe have their slow OTG on like a different button than 8A. Some characters might not even have like a 2A or an 8A, right? So this is not universal, but I would say for like more than half of the cast, this is something that they have. So yeah, that's the basic gist of OTGs, and honestly, if that's all you want to know about what an OTG is, you can kind of just close the video now. Please don't though, there's still like a lot of other good stuff here, so please stay. But next up, I do want to talk about kind of more the specific mechanics, more on the maybe esoterics of OTGs, which if that's like not interesting to you, maybe skip like the section after that. It should all be shown in the timestamp below. But if you're interested in kind of more of like the nerdy part, the more specific kind of cool interactions with OTGs, stay for the next section. So I guess the first really specific kind of esoteric thing to talk about with OTG is that there isn't an actual formal OTG mechanic. And what I mean by that is that there are some games out there where being able to hit OTG is an actual discrete property that a move has. MGP2 doesn't work that way. I kind of present it as if there is, because on the wiki and all, I basically say, hey, this move can hit OTG. But this actually isn't a distinct property. It's really as simple as if this move's hitbox is low enough that it hits the character's grounded hitbox while they're on the ground, it will hit OTG. And so what this means is that a move can or cannot OTG based on the specific character's hitbox while they're on the ground. A good way to show this off is with Checkmate. So with Checkmate, he has like the 6-6S special move. It doesn't look like it will OTG, but it can sort of OTG. Here if I knock Tiny Man down and I do 6-6S, it can sometimes hit once, like just like that, right? Which means like an awful OTG. This is a special move and only hits for like 28 damage. Like that's awful. However, if you use it on a bigger character, well, just see what happens. If I do a knockdown into 6-6S, they can get hit 8 times for 224 damage, which is a lot better, right? This makes it actually kind of worth using against these characters. And this is like some of the kind of specificity that comes up, not too frequently, but does come up like in this situation in this game, that there are OTGs that will only work on bigger characters, which actually kind of makes bigger characters a lot more susceptible. Yes, a lot of them have more health, but also means like they can oftentimes take more damage in OTG against some characters because they just have a bigger hitbox on the ground. Alright, let's talk frame data. So frame data wise, every OTG hit always does 32 frames of hit stun. Regardless of if it was originally like a light stun move, a heavy stun move, a knockdown move, it will always do 32 frames of hit stun if it hits as an OTG. After which point, the opponent can just get back up right away. And this changes the meta on a lot of moves that might be not amazing on standing hit to be a lot better on OTG hit. This is especially the case for like light stun moves. Kinnikuman, for example, his 2A on standing hit is -7. It does 24 frames of hit stun, so after like his recovery, he's -7 on hit. This is, if you don't charge cancel it, you don't do anything else. It's -7, right? But because as an OTG, this is 32 frames of hit stun, as a result, doing a 2-way OTG ends up leaving Kinnikuman +1, right? And this is +1 with, after which your opponent can get up. So it actually ends up being a lot more advantageous as an OTG than as a standing hit. And OTG hit stun being hit stun, this means if you're able to hit the opponent while they're still in hit stun, it will form a combo, just like this. That second 2-way is a combo, like that. Both hits are guaranteed. And these are what we call OTG combos. This is actually a pretty big part of OTGs as well. Probably a bit too cool to just leave in like this little esoteric section. So actually leave it like for its own section afterwards, right? So apologies for maybe like the weird structure in this video. So more on this a bit later. There'll be like a whole dedicated section there. Then if you just want to skip ahead to that, go for it, I guess. One exception to this is Sunshine, because Sunshine has to be a special snowflake. Every character in this game, like I mentioned earlier, takes 32 frames of OTG hit stun, except for Sunshine and exactly Sunshine. Instead, he takes 26 frames of OTG hit stun. This doesn't sound like a big difference, right? Only 6 frames less, but this means that there are some OTG combos that is flat out impossible on Sunshine, or at the very least are harder to do on Sunshine, just because of that extra, or rather, that reduced hit stun. So with Kinnikuman, I probably should have shown this earlier. I'll probably show this later, like in the OTGs combo section on its own. But Kinnikuman 2A for success is like his classic go-to OTG combo. And this works on everyone in the cast, except Sunshine, because again, Sunshine recovers in time to not be hit by the 4 success. Another pretty important thing to talk about when it comes to OTGs is how it interacts with green KKD, specifically the true green KKD activation. One thing that true green KKD gives you that most people aren't aware of is that it shortens every unit attack time to only 1 frame. So typically with Kinnikuman, right, if he does a 236S, that guarantees his 8-8, right? If I mash kind of like quick get up here from player 2, the 8-8 is still guaranteed. However, if a character is in true green KKD, if I do Kinnikuman Buster, and I try to OTG with 8A afterwards, as you will see, they can get up almost immediately, and that 8A will not hit OTG. This next bit is not exactly about OTGs, but about how you can frequently mess up an OTG, and that is by the fact that some knockdowns, especially those by strikes, are so advantageous. They cause like a specific like falling animation that you can actually hit them before they even hit the ground. And as a result, this won't properly hit an OTG, but instead as a juggle. So here if I do Teleman 4A straight into his 8A, you can see that that hits before the opponent properly knocked down, and the 8A will juggle instead of OTGing, and this will cause the opponent to be able to tech roll. And what basically this means, you have to slightly delay your OTG so that it will properly hit as an OTG. And just like that, you can see that that time that actually hit properly as an OTG. Well, yeah, I think that about covers it as far as any kind of special mechanics or esoterics that I thought is worth covering for this video, at least that I'm remembering while I'm recording this video. And if there are any more, I'm sure that they will be on the wiki, or I might make a follow-up video, we'll see. But I think that should be the main notable ones to know, at least like from a pretty basic level, right? So with that said, I think I mentioned earlier about the whole OTG combo stuff. Let's come back to that, because like that's a pretty important part about this game. So, OTG combos. To maybe recap for those who skipped over the esoterics section before, when you OTG someone, they're actually stuck in hit stun for a little bit. So if you can actually hit them while they're still like in a hit stun, they will end up being a combo, right? So with Kinnikuman, his 60 can like a 2A, and then like that second 2A is guaranteed, and that second 2A further can guarantee something else if you cancel out of it, right? So with Kinnikuman, his go-to OTG combo is 60, or like, you know, and a knockdown into 2A for 6S, and this is completely guaranteed, right? This takes on an extra 112 damage to knockdowns that guarantee it. So this 60 knockdown that was originally 140 damage, if you do that OTG, ends up going up to 152 damage, right? Which is a lot better. So this is a great way to like kind of like add more damage, especially for characters who do have them. As you saw with Kinnikuman earlier, a lot of OTG combos take the form of like a button or a button into a special move that gets OTG. Mantaro, for example, has a very similar one, maybe even better than Kinnikuman's, because his is a multi-hitting OTG. There he did like 195 damage from just an OTG hits alone. It's cheaper than the Kinnikuman's too. And of course, there's this guy. What he's doing is an OTG combo, because those multi-hits of his fireball just hits in a sequence to basically combo with each other, right? If you know what I'm talking about, let's just show you that really quickly. And that is all part of an OTG combo. Even like towards the end there, that's also part of the combo, because like that fireball leaves him plus enough, it makes him recover early enough that he can actually like OTG afterwards with that little sweep that he does there. That is part of an OTG, like that is all considered an OTG combo. Now, the logical conclusion of an OTG combo, of course, is an OTG infinite. So, on paper, hypothetically, right, if you have a character with a move that hits OTG that can recover and then hit again within 32 frames, that OTG move can combo into itself ad infinitum. And unfortunately, this is not a hypothetical. There are characters who are able to do this, Kevin Mass being one of them. Now, I'm going to try to demonstrate this infinite. I am awful at it. It's extremely strict. I think like it's a 1 or 2 frame link. So I'm really awful at it, and at most I'll probably only be able to get, if any, maybe only like a few reps. But I should still be able to kind of illustrate what that will look like. There you can see I got 3 reps, right? And of course, that's all I can manage, but you can basically do this until the opponent dies. And this is completely unburstable, right? You can't activate True KKD while you're on the ground being OTG'd. So this technically, on paper, can, kill someone from full life if you don't drop the infinite. Unfortunately, with how strict it is, with how many reps you need to get this kill and how few characters are able to do it, this isn't very practical for basically any characters who's able to have access to this. So I'm thankful for that. At least I don't think like it's practical. I'm going to be proven wrong. So maybe one day someone will pull up to a tournament and hit everyone with like the Kevin Infinite. But for the time being, I want to say and I want to believe that this is not really practical. So we don't have to worry about this, but it is possible. It is something you can lab out. Should you? Probably not, but it is possible. So that's OTGs. I'm not gonna bother with maybe like a spotlight of like the best OTGs in the game. You all already know who has the best OTG in the game, and for the most part, unlike maybe like the change through video, or maybe it's good to highlight the specific changes that are good. Most OTGs in this game are good. For the most part, every character wants to be doing their OTGs, no matter how bad it is, because it's just such a big part of this game. Of course, there are a lot ones that are a lot better than others, but for the most part, it is a mechanic that basically everyone in the cast makes use to some extent. So it's really important. It's a really big part of the game. Maybe not the most unique part of the game compared to the ropes or like the stun system, but it's definitely still a very integral part of the game and definitely still something that makes MGP2 MGP2. As always, thank you for watching this video. I know that this might not be like the most exciting or entertaining video, but I still think OTGs is a really important topic to talk about when it comes to this game. Really surprised I haven't done it earlier, but here we are, right? Better late than never and all that stuff. As usual, if you enjoyed it, thank you so much. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know what your favorite OTGs are from this game. Let me know, if you think OTGs are a good mechanic. Maybe you've been OTG'd by the mountain one too many times that you're like, this game is better off than an OTG. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that, I guess. But otherwise, that's probably it from me, and I will see you in the next video as always.